This meeting of the Littleton Liquor Licensing Authority will come to order, please. Would you take the roll call, please, Rochelle?
Authority Member Gallagher?
I'm here.
Authority Member Bradish?
Here.
Authority Member Cole?
Here.
Authority Member Boonia? Authority Member Price?
Here.
Authority Member England? Authority Member Odell?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. All of the alternates get to vote on any matter that comes before us this evening. Let's see, show cause hearings, I guess, is let's see, minutes. We need to, there's an amendment to the minutes. Would you?
Yes, on page 6 of the draft, the bottom paragraph where it says seconded by authority member, there is no one's name in there. And I'm sorry to say I can't tell you whose name goes in there, but
Okay, can I get a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
yes, I make a motion we accept the minutes as amended.
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nobody opposed. All right, item 9A, show cause hearing, Rocky Incorporated doing business as Super Discount Liquor of Littleton, 60 West Littleton Boulevard, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
For information, authority members, Mr. Hipshire is here with the licensee, and they're going to admit to both violations, both under A and B, and we have a proposed stipulation which you may or may not accept or which you may improve for the licensee. And if you were to disregard it or try and increase the period of the suspension, then they would have the opportunity to have a hearing on one or both of the allegations.
What have you decided on?
The agreement would be that the license would be suspended for 7 days total for the two of them. There would be 14 days additional held in abeyance for a year. The 7 days could be split up because there's two violations, two days selected in two different periods of time, and that he would have to take some training again. He wouldn't be able to sell to this regular customer who is the person who buys the 6-pack or the 12-pack and the bottle of alcohol, and he's going to work on improving his English as a second language, as he indicated in the report that he wasn't good on picking up with subtleties of intoxication due to the language barrier.
Well, probably due to the fact the guy was in his car.
That too, but his statement was he's not too good on picking up slurs and whatnot because of the language issue.
Okay, so as I understand it, you're agreeing to 21 days with 14 days held in abeyance and split the other 7 days into two periods?
Right, and Mr. Hipshire is going to address you on why that might be too harsh.
Why that might be too harsh?
Right, but the
Okay.
stipulation is that's the cap that the city would recommend to the authority.
All right, sir.
know that I'm suggesting that it's
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Clifton Hipshire representing Mr. Dong, who appears to my left. Ladies and gentlemen of the authority, I'm not suggesting that it's too harsh. I would, of course, like to tell you a little bit about the situation, what Mr. Dong has done to ensure that this doesn't happen again at your pleasure. Well, first of all, certainly.
Or get shorter.
You're too tall.
First of all, with regard to the two violations, we are, of course, admitting the violations. But I know that I have an opportunity to tell you the circumstances. One of the violations involved sale to a minor. That was a sting by the police department. And Mr. Dong relates to me that on that occasion, he was essentially working the store by himself. This was during the busy period after people get off of work between, I believe, 5 and 7. Normally, in order to allow him to look carefully at people who are coming into the store, size up whether they're intoxicated, whether they're underage, etc., he has 2 people working, himself and another individual. On this occasion, however, the other individual who's normally working the store went into the cooler to do some kind of work. I believe it was stocking work or something like that. That puts him in a very difficult position because there are a number of people in the store at that point. I've been to the store, and I can tell you that it's very well stocked. There's a lot of stock in the store. So obviously he has a responsibility to the community to make sure that people aren't coming in and stealing alcohol illegally, taking alcohol out, perhaps people who are not entitled to purchase alcohol. So at this point, he was trying to watch everybody who was in the store, plus serve the customers who were coming up. And in part, this is how the violation occurred. Perhaps if the other individual had been there, he would have been able to pay more attention. What is he going to do in the future to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Mr. Dong, I spoke to him and we discussed some ways that he could avoid this happening in the future. One of them is that during the busy hours, there will be no stocking. There will be no going into the cooler. There will be 2 of them there available so that he can spend the time that's necessary to spend with his prospective customers to ascertain that they are legally entitled to purchase alcohol. That's the first violation. The second violation is somewhat more problematic, but again, I emphasize that we are willing to admit and take whatever steps we can.
You're talking about the sting. That's what you just talked about?
Well, I talked
The
about the
sting happened because that happened because he was too busy. He had somebody in the back room stocking.
Yeah, well, as I said,
Now you're going to talk about this other gentleman. Okay.
Right. Normally, he has 2 people available, so he can spend more time with individuals to ascertain whether they're legally entitled. On this particular occasion, the other gentleman went away, so he was trying to do too many things at once.
I follow you.
To the second violation, this was a violation involving sale to a person who was visibly intoxicated. As you, Mr. Gallagher, I think pointed out, this was a drive-up window incident. It's difficult to see people when they're sitting in their car. It also occurred in the morning when you wouldn't expect a person to drive up intoxicated. Also, it was a regular customer of his, so he has a higher confidence level. I can tell you that there was another person, a distributor's rep there, and if you care to see it, with Mr. Katz's indulgence, he stated that he saw the individual and didn't see anything that triggered an alarm bell in his mind. That, notwithstanding that was the case, the charging documents also, if you look at the reports that were provided for the show cause, seems to indicate that this individual, when he was pulled over by the police, actually had one of the bottles that Mr. Dong may have sold him was open and that he was drinking from it. Notwithstanding that, we are admitting the violation. One of the things that Mr. Dong, in addition to the things that Mr. Katz has pointed out that he's willing to do, things like trying to improve his English, of course, is that he has signed up for the responsible vendor program. And well, let me see, he's actually sent the application in and is waiting to be scheduled. And if you give me a second here, I've got so many papers in here. He's applied to Serve Safe Alcohol, which is, I guess, a subsection of the Colorado Restaurant Association Education Fund, to take that program course. So I think that the bottom line is that he is trying to be proactive in acquitting his responsibility to the community. At this time, if you have any questions.
Well, and, yeah, just one question here regarding the sting by the police department. Mr. Duong stated that, and this happened, this underage person went in and purchased the alcohol minutes before the police officer talked to him. He said he didn't remember whether he did or not. And he sold it less than 2 minutes ago to a male wearing a blue shirt, blue tie, black pants. He said, I don't remember. Now, I guess I find that hard to believe that he has a interaction with somebody, never checks an identification. I mean, that's what it's all about. You have to check the identification. The kid had a minor's ID card, which is distinguishable because it's vertical rather than horizontal. And do you understand that, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because that is so busy and so pressure for me that time. So many people get in line.
Yeah.
That's why I say it.
But you sell, when you're at the counter, you sell one at a time, right? One customer at a time at your counter?
Yeah, but it,
You need to ask for an ID. That's, and look at it and identify and do the math and figure out if they're old enough to do it. It's very basic, it's very simple. But
I
it
think
wasn't even
also it's much more important to check the IDs rather than worry about somebody shoplifting liquor out of the store. That would be a bad thing, but it's a much more consequential to you if you get a violation by not checking the ID of the purchaser. So priority has to be to that.
And to further expand upon that, somebody shoplifts from the store, it's not an affront to the community. That's an affront to his net. Okay? And I understand you need to make money and you want to keep an eye on them, but you have a responsibility to the city to check the identifications.
If I may address the authority, we do have the activity information of the licensee. For the last few years, we have one to circulate. We would ask that that be marked as Exhibit B under 9A and 9B, and that under 9A, which we're calling show cause number 1 for super discount liquor, that we admit A, B, C, and D exhibits, and under what we're numbering is number 2, super discount liquor, which is under 9B, that we admit A, B, and C exhibits, and share Exhibit D to both of those, and then have the authority review the aggravating and mitigating factors which are in the staff report.
Okay. So we need a motion to accept these exhibits?
Please.
I make a motion, we accept the exhibits.
That's A through D?
A through D, yes, sir.
A through D.
I second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, well, it shows here, and I do remember, sir, that on August 8th, 2007, you did the same thing. You served to a minor.
Well, let me address that, if I may. Mr. Dong, as I understand, had just purchased the store. I think he had owned it less than a week. The prior owner was, at that time, training him. And so there was the sale. Even though he was the owner at the time, I think that a great deal of the responsibility for that falls upon the person who he purchased it from, because at that point he had less than a week of training at that point. So I know that it's still his responsibility.
Right.
However, I would say that it's a somewhat unusual situation. He told me about that incident. What he told me about that incident was that this individual came in and was talking to the previous owner at length, and that he understood that this individual was someone who was known to the previous owner, and because of that, he sold him without carding this individual.
No, sir, that's not the case. The case was it was another sting, if I remember correctly. And the gentleman that came back, he flew back from Thailand or somewhere like that to admit that he did it and to stick up for you. And now where is he now? He doesn't work for you anymore, does he?
Well, at that time, he would train me 2 weeks.
Okay.
And left for Thailand.
Okay.
He's the previous owner.
Right.
I was on training. And he was stand on one cashier register, and I was over here. So I saw he talked with the girl who worked with the undercover.
Right.
And and when I saw that he didn't check the ID, but I say, oh, maybe he know this girl because
Okay.
he talked with that girl. That's why. He was training me, so I don't have the power to say anything because I afraid that maybe this guy training me that he know everything and he the owner for 5 years.
What line of work were you in before you went into the liquor business, sir?
For me,
What did you do before you bought the liquor store?
I would work for the liquor store in Boulder.
So you had experience with
Yeah,
liquor
I
stores
worked
before?
part-time. I was a student in Boulder, at CGU in Boulder. And I work in a liquor store for part-time.
Okay. To the other incident where the gentleman was driving, the officer stated that they had to carry him from the car, pretty much assist him to walk. They wouldn't give him the roadside test because they were afraid he would be unsafe for him to perform the maneuvers. Do you think that you'd have sold it to him if he'd have walked in that store instead of drove up? Do you think that drive-in window's a good idea?
Repeat the question again, please.
Do you think the drive-in window is a good idea?
My personal point, the right-to window is very helpful for my business. But I tell you the truth, in the morning, and it's difficult for the seller that indicate the driver he wrong or not, because usually when they get by the window, they pretend to be shopper and they don't want to show anything. In this case, the driver wear the sunglasses and he didn't say much. He just say, give me this, give me that.
Yeah.
And it's far away for me to smell.
Yeah. So do you still think that the drive-through window is a good idea? That was my question.
It helped for my business, but I think I need experience to learn.
Is it going to be good for your business if this happens again and you get suspended?
Yeah,
Well, if I may,
Please.
we've talked about this, and clearly it's something that helps his business, but I've explained to him that it's not going to help his business if his license is revoked. So we would take whatever recommendation the authority is willing to give.
Actually, sir, I don't think we can recommend that he shut down that operation, the drive-through operation. But I would say that if it happens again, you're going to be back here again, of course. And I don't think that I think we'll be a little more severe.
Well, I think the point about the drive-in is you made a good case that it's impossible to tell if somebody that's really intoxicated, which this person was, is intoxicated from the window. And that presents a risk to you, because what the chairman said is true, that we can't let that happen again. And so it's up to you to decide whether you want to take the risk of having the drive-up window in exchange for whatever business it gives you. This is some business you could have gotten along fine without. And I don't know how many other times there's been someone that probably picked a liquor store with a drive-up window just because they knew they wouldn't be checked. I think you really need to consider that.
Yeah, I think I had the experience, and I will ask my professor in the tip training class about the clue how to indicate the people when they show up at window. I will add them and I will figure out. In addition, I will figure out how to
Sir, it's your decision what you want to do about that drive-up window. You can keep it, you can close it, you can do whatever you want. But if it happens again, we're going to be a little more serious about any penalties that come up.
We understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Have you ever refused anybody who's driven up based upon, thinking that they were faking it or they were intoxicated?
Yet I got one of the driver before last year. He would show up very drunk, and he asked me to buy the whiskey. Something I rejected, and later the police came to my liquor store and asked me. I say I rejected the driver. I had that happen last year. He looked very drunk, and I know.
I was wondering do you find it hard to check ID through a drive-in window?
This guy, he looked old, and he come to my liquor store.
Yeah, he's a regular customer.
I wasn't really interested in that man as much as just anybody that drives up to the window. What is your procedure to check the ID for somebody that drives up there? What do you do if someone drives up to your
How do
window?
you check his?
Oh yeah, usually I add the ID when I feel that I need to add the ID. Then they just give me the ID and I look at.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll find the mitigating factors and aggravating factors for the hearing on page 2 of the staff report prior to
Okay.
conclusions and recommendations.
Well, the seriousness of these violations, I believe it's serious. Underage, sale to underage, and sale to over-serving. I mean, in this particular case, the gentleman had been in an accident, was turned into the police, seen at your place purchasing the alcohol by the police, and chased by the police for, 8 or 10 blocks before he finally pulled over into a dead end. You're taking corrective actions. You're going to, during your busy part, you're going to have somebody else on the floor. That's a good thing. We have a prior violation, and I know that you explained it, that you're in training, but it's still there. Violation of repeated course of conduct. I mean, I can't say you did it on purpose, but it's not a single event. Likelihood of recurrence. I think that if you get a serious enough suspension, it's not going to recur again. Hardship on the licensee. What kind of hardship would this put on you?
Well, I think that you have how many employees?
3.
He has 3 employees. Obviously, if he gets a long suspension, he's going to have to lay them off. In this economic climate, that's obviously a hardship on his employees. In addition, as I mentioned, the economic climate, it's difficult for any business to maintain itself now, and a lengthy suspension obviously is going to make that harder. As we know, people have habits of going to particular stores. If they go to that store often enough and find it closed, then they have a tendency to shift to another store. So it's quite possible, without going into Mr. Dung's business issues with the store, my understanding is that he operates in a fairly tight margin with what he owes from purchasing the store to what he's able to earn. So a lengthy suspension might well result in his having to close.
Okay.
Katz, could you repeat for me, please, the recommendation that you had?
The recommendation is that the time to be served of the suspension not held in abeyance would be 7 days. There would be 14 days held in abeyance for a total of 21 days of suspension, with 7 days to be served at this time. That the authority could entertain a request by the licensee to have those 7 days served in 2 different groupings as opposed to being one straight 7-day period, that he would get himself involved in some English as a second language to help him with the communication and to make these determinations even in the difficult situations, that he would go through training. It's my understanding, and I don't know if this should be considered, but I think it's part of the hardship issue, is that he has been considering trying to sell the business, and that an overriding concern here was that he not be revoked, so there would be something to sell if he could. So he's going to look into those aspects also because he's running such a tight margin. So I may have overstepped to mention that, but I think that's one of the issues that he feels could damage the business for a hardship, that the revocation, if he were to suffer that, or if it was a suspension for a longer period of time, he might not survive, which would then eliminate the ability to turn the license into a valuable asset and repay his debtor.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more question for you. Are you open 7 days a week or 6? 7?
Yeah, for now. Yeah.
Guess what? 7 days?
Are you open on Sunday?
Yes, 7 day a week.
Okay. Okay, back to this here. You received a suspension on August 8th, 2007 for serving a minor. We took it pretty easy on you then, 7 days with 5 days held in abeyance, and you've been good ever since then. But they should have told you, you need to pay attention to it. So I got to agree with, I think that we may all agree on the 21 days with 14 held in abeyance, and how much trouble that is to get that posted, Sergeant Bolin. Is that problematic for you to post that at 2 different times? No? Okay.
We do have 2 violations. You could split the issues in each violation, and they would be posted as their separate violations.
That's perfect. That makes it easier for me. Okay, so with that in mind, you have anything else?
Nothing at this time.
You may step back. Based on said findings, this is agenda item 9A, case number 2008-005465. I move that the authority find Rocky Incorporated doing business as Super Discount Liquor of Littleton, 60 West Littleton Boulevard, Littleton, Arapahoe County, Colorado, did violate CRS 1247-901-1-A, Littleton Municipal Ordinance 3.2.10F. Based on said findings, I move that Rocky Incorporated doing business, Super Discount Liquor, 60 West Littleton Boulevard license be suspended for 10 days, and that notice of such suspension be posted in and outside of the licensed premises in accordance with Liquor Code Regulation 600F, and that the suspension begin on, I said 10 days with 7 days held in abeyance, and that the suspension begin on March 1st, 2009. So that means in this case you'll be closed for March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Can I get a second to that?
I second the motion.
Would you poll the authority, please? Yes.
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 Okay. The second case, I move that the authority, which is, case number, it's agenda number 9B. Case number 2008-006942. I move the authority find that Rocky Incorporated doing business as Super Discount Liquors of Littleton, 60 West Littleton Boulevard, Littleton, Arapahoe County, Colorado, did violate Colorado Revised Statutes 1247-901-1A. Based on said findings, I move that Rocky Incorporated doing business as Super Discount Liquor of Littleton, 60 West Littleton Boulevard, license be suspended for 11 days with 7 days held in abeyance for a year, and that notices of such suspension be posted in and outside of the license of premises in accordance with Colorado Liquor Code Regulation 47-600F, and that the suspension begin on March 10th, 2009. Second?
I'll second.
Would you poll the authority, please?
Authority Member Gallagher?
Yes.
Authority Member Radish?
Yes.
Authority Member Cole?
Yes.
Authority Member Odell?
Yes.
Authority Member Faust?
No.
No. All right, that passes. So, Counselor, do you understand what you have? You can explain that to your client? Yes, Sergeant Poland will go out there and post the premises that you closed due to those regulations.
And the first violations begin
March 1st. You're welcome. All right, next order of business.
Open cells.
Alleged liquor code violation, show cause hearing for Metro Oil Company Incorporated, doing business as Diamond Shamrock, number 1109, 6857 South Broadway. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. I got out of whack here. All right. Sorry. Item 9C. Kurt A. Melstrom, doing business as Pyramid Discount Liquors, 599 West Littleton Boulevard, Littleton, Colorado, 80120. We can, but I just wanted to get it. All right, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. The record should reflect that Kurt Melstrom is present here today before this authority, represented by his attorney, Mike Miller, 1901 West Littleton Boulevard. I thought I was short enough.
All right.
We do have for this hearing also exhibits A, B, and C. And we would offer a longer period of ownership as Exhibit B.
All right.
Exhibit D for this, and this is on 9C on our agenda. This would be the original for the record. There's some copies that you have for the staff report.
Okay. Have you, Mr. Katz, have you come to an agreement with,
Mr. Miller is confident in his presentation, and I'm going to, for the most part, be silent.
okay. Do you have a stipulation in this case, or?
Well, we really didn't have a stipulation other than we did inform the city attorney that we would come before this commission, and we're prepared to admit that one of the employees of Pyramid Discount Liquor did, on the date and time in question, sell a 12-pack of, I think it was Corona to underage individual. And we have a substantial statement in mitigation.
Go ahead.
Members of the commission, I come before you here tonight on behalf of not only a client of mine, but a friend that I've known for many, many years. Kurt Melstrom was probably one of the first clients that I got when I left the DA's office and went into private practice as a lawyer in Littleton in 1980. Back in 1980, he came to me, and I've been doing legal work for him and his family ever since. I'm proud to say that in that 28-year period of time, I've never had to appear before this board and represent Pyramid Liquor for any kind of violation. Pyramid Liquor has a long history, long history, standing in this community of no violations for serving to a minor. Not only is Mr. Melstrom an owner and manager of a liquor store, but his wife, Gina Melstrom, who's here today, owns and she manages a liquor store by the name of Dry Creek Discount Liquor, which is right on the corner of University and Dry Creek Road, right by Arapahoe High School. I've also represented her, and since 1986, when they opened Dry Creek Discount Liquor, they also have never had a violation. So when you look back at this long history and say, boy, here's two stores that were run by these two family members without any difficulty, without any violations, how does that happen? And I would assert that it comes from a strong commitment, the strongest commitment that a business owner can possibly have to not selling to minors. Both Kurt and his wife have lived in Arapahoe County and been good business persons in Arapahoe County. They've raised 3 children in Arapahoe County. They didn't want their children to buy and or consume alcohol. They didn't want your children to buy or consume alcohol. They don't want anyone's children to buy or consume alcohol. And because of this very strong belief, they've put very strict requirements into their stores to make certain that they don't have these kinds of violations.
So what happened that night?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
But it's an excellent question. If I could take it in turn, I'd
All
like to
right.
do it that way. I would assert to you that neither Gina or Kurt Melstrom would want to taint their strong business reputation in this community by ever allowing a system be put in place that would not do the best they possibly could to try and trap this, try and stop this, and try and not let this kind of incident occur. As to that night, there was a young man working at the store. His name was Kurt Lanny. And Kurt's name is Kurt also, but Kurt Lanny is a different Kurt. So if I happen to say Kurt now for the next few minutes, I'll be talking about Mr. Lanny.
Let's use Mr. Lanny so we don't get confused.
Okay, I'll use Mr. Lanny if I remember. Mr. Lanny is a 23-year-old student at Metropolitan State College. He is a philosophy major, and he's really, truly a delightful young man. He made a mistake, and he committed a crime, but he is a delightful young man. I went over to talk to Mr. Lanny about the incident and what happened, with the thinking that maybe I would bring him down here and let him personally explain to you what happened and tell you how this went down. But I have to tell you, although he's just really a sweet kid, he is so shy and so reserved, I don't think that he would be very good at trying to tell you and explain to you what happened that evening. So I went over there to Pyramid Liquor, and we met in the back room, and I basically grilled him, and I'm prepared to tell you what he represented to me happened. Mr. Lanny said, in response to my question, how could you sell to a minor? He said, I actually thought he was too young. And he said, that's why I asked him for his ID. And he was talking to the customer. He asked him for his ID. The customer pulled out the ID and showed it to him. Mr. Lanny told me that it was a Florida ID, so he wasn't totally familiar with it, but he wanted to check it carefully, so he had him take it out of the wallet, and he was looking at it. He said, I first checked his picture. I wanted to make sure it was him and make sure that it looked exactly like him, and sure enough, it was a carbon copy. I then wanted to check, because I was not certain of his age, and I looked at the expiration date, and I computed the expiration date and compared it to today's date and saw that it was a valid license. And he said, then I just got confused and thought I had checked the birth date. So he looked at it, he reviewed it, he was trying to be careful, and he made a mistake. And he admitted to me that he made a mistake. He felt very terrible that he made a mistake and very guilty about it. Mr. Lanny subsequently was issued the ticket. He went down to the Arapahoe County. He didn't hire a lawyer. He went in and talked to the district attorney. He told them the exact same story, and that he made a mistake and that he was guilty, and he wanted to plead guilty. So he did plead guilty the very first day he went to court. He got $296 in court costs and fines, which for as a college student was a substantial penalty. And he came back and told everybody at the store how sorry he was, what a mistake he had made. He accepted full responsibility for it, and he didn't try to hide behind his mistake and make any excuses. He just said, I screwed up. I thought I had checked his birthday, and I didn't. It's interesting to note that a second sting operation was conducted that night at Pyramid Liquor. So they didn't just come in with one underage, but they came in with a second underage. And as luck would have it, or fate would have it, the second underage individual who came in to buy also got Mr. Lanny as a clerk. He doesn't clerk as often as the other clerks. His primary responsibility is he's a stocker, he's a cooler stocker, and he's usually out there stocking the cooler. But occasionally he's called upon to clerk. He's been fully trained. He worked several days with a shadow manager, watching him and training him on all the computers and the formulas they have to punch in and the buttons they have to hit, and on how to check IDs. So he has been trained. But he has decided that he doesn't want to clerk anymore. So after this incident occurred, he asked to be pulled off and not have to clerk unless it was absolutely necessary. He's a really shy young man, kind of a shy kid, and he's not very self-confident, and he knows he made a mistake, and he just feels terrible.
So the second sting.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
When the second sting came, I just have this in my head one way, and I'll try and not belabor it. But when the second sting came in, he actually caught it. And he looked at the ID. Again, it was an ID of a minor, and they handed him the ID. But this time he caught the birth date and saw that it was too young, and he didn't make the sale. When I grilled him about, boy, if they're handing you the ID, why wouldn't you just look at the birth date first? He said, I now know that. I know that's important, but there were so many things I had to check, and I just got confused. And I can't tell you why. He promised me it wouldn't happen again, and I think he really did learn his lesson, but he was honest and admitted that he had just made a mistake. He did say to me that he felt absolutely horrible by the risk that he put his friend and his owner and his boss at, Kurt Maelstrom, and he felt just as much sorry and wanted to apologize to his coworkers that he knows if the store does get shut down, they're going to lose income and affect their ability to support their families. So then the question, I think, becomes, what does Mr. Maelstrom, Kurt Maelstrom, do at this point to try and make sure that this kind of thing doesn't ever happen again? He could rest on his laurels and go, boy, between the two stores, we've done this over 40 years and never had a problem, and that was just a bad night and bad luck. But no, given his position that he really wants to ensure that this never happens in any of his stores, he has gone out and purchased for his store, and I think his wife has purchased for her store, one of these electronic computers that actually, and they're not very inexpensive, but it actually diagnoses the age by running the ID through the machine.
Swipe it.
You slide it through, yes. Now, I asked Kurt to bring it today, so if you'd like to see it and get a demonstration of how it works,
Sure.
We'd be happy to show that to you. But I also made an exhibit of the manual of the book.
I'd like to have that marked as Exhibit E. I don't have a marking.
Yeah.
Oh, you can give me just make one E that we'll keep here for the actual exhibit.
Yeah, that's right.
And Exhibit E for 9C.
Does it work for every state? I mean,
It's agenda item 9C. We'll have it in
That's
the
very
record.
interesting.
How expensive is one of those?
No, that's fine, because it just, I can see it swipes.
It's good for us, but I thought in the bar, they could also carry this around.
Yeah, you said it.
I think it's something you're going to see more and more
When did you purchase this?
right after the incident.
Okay.
I do have one question. All dates aside, the ID's vertical.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't even, why didn't
But
you just
then-
go, whoop, vertical ID?
I asked him about that. He said it was an out-of-state ID, and he told me it was an out-of-state ID. He didn't know if that would be uniform for every state, that some states could have a vertical ID that was for over 21. I don't personally know if that's uniformly been adopted, but he said he was just confused. He also said that he has seen vertical IDs for states that issue them for 4 or 5 year period before they expire. And if you get it when you're 19 or 20, there can be a vertical ID for somebody who is old enough to buy.
But it would seem that that would be some kind of a hint that he might want to have checked that a little bit closer.
Absolutely. And for you or I at that time, I'm sure we would have had that judgment. For a 23-year-old Metro student who was trying to work a part-time job, put himself through college, and studying at night, working by day, he was admittedly confused and admitted he made a mistake. If I could approach, I'll hand you copies of these manuals.
Okay.
I don't know your procedure for this.
Neither do I.
Staff has retained one of the copies to be part of the record.
Yeah. We need to, do we have any exhibits? Do you have any exhibits?
It is Exhibit E, and we've already marked the one that's going into the record
Okay.
as such.
All right, so I guess I need a motion to accept exhibits A through E.
I make a motion that we accept exhibits A through E.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, that motion passes.
The other thing I would like to point out to the authority is that Pyramid Liquor has been a major enforcement tool, I think, for the city of Littleton because of their aggressive stance on not selling to minors. And they have had literally hundreds upon hundreds of incidents where they have caught either somebody coming in with an ID and it wasn't their face or it wasn't their ID, or somebody who has come in with a picture, an actual picture ID but the age is too low, or an actual ID that has been made that is fraudulent. I think Mr. Milstrom indicated to me, and he'd be happy to discuss this, but even since he's bought this machine, they've caught even more because this machine is telling them if it's a forged ID. And the minute, and I think you said 3 or 4 just since you bought the machine, you thought, and their procedure and their practice is they confiscate the ID immediately, they try to detain the individual, and they call the Littleton police. They're not often successful in keeping an individual there, and they won't use force because they've been instructed not to.
Right.
But when they can get them to stay, they do get them to stay, and a lot of tickets have been issued. When I went over to interview Mr. Lanny, Willie, what's his last name? Descala, who's the manager of the store, opened a drawer behind the register and showed me a drawer full of IDs that they've confiscated. And I just asked for a couple of them randomly to present to you to show that they are vigilant in trying to stop anybody with a fake ID.
So we would mark this next
This would be
document as
F.
Exhibit F, and we'll retain one for the official record. Exhibit F under the Agenda 9C. Yeah, 9C. I'm sorry, you had me lost there for a second. Thank you.
I might approach.
Please. I get a motion to accept exhibit F.
I make a motion that we accept exhibit F.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Okay, good. Very good.
Now, these are just a random sampling, and there were a lot more. I didn't want to belabor the point, and I didn't really have any method to what I grabbed and copied. I think there's some of them in here that are people that are actually of age but didn't match their picture, and there's a couple in here people were underage, and a couple were just out-and-out frauds. And very good frauds. When I looked at them, I couldn't tell, but they didn't have the, holographs weren't as clear, and the etchings weren't as clear on some of the IDs.
Okay.
I would assert that because we have a business that has operated for such a long period of time with such a good track record, that although they did have this violation, it's really clear that they're not a business that's attempting or being casual about checking IDs. I would assert that because of their long outstanding business record, their long outstanding record of apprehending folks that come in with fake IDs, and because this is their first offense, that they'd be given the opportunity, because of their admission here today, to be able to have the suspension held in abeyance, whatever that suspension is.
All right, sir. Sure.
Could I just ask how many employees?
10 employees.
I wanted
Stores.
to add
At this store.
At the one store.
At Pyramid.
Yeah.
Okay.
At this
The other
store.
one- The other one is in Centennial or Arapahoe County? Centennial.
Centennial.
I believe it's now Centennial.
Yeah.
So when we got it licensed, we licensed it through Arapahoe County.
It wouldn't be an issue as far as.
Yeah, it's
the
a,
hardship in that.
right.
I wanted to add, Mr. Miller gave me a lot of history that goes with his client, the licensee in this case, and how back in the day, he, with other businesses, liquor store owners, collectively made an association for which Mr. Miller became instrumental in being, I think, the treasurer for that?
I
or
was the secretary.
The
yeah.
secretary. And they did stings and other programs to try and make sure that the area liquor salespeople were doing a good job, even though there wasn't such scrutiny as there is nowadays on those issues, and maintained that and expanded that for a period of time. And Mr. Miller has been with him ever since.
Yes, when the reason Kurt first came to me was it was his idea, and he was the initial founding member of the Littleton Retail Liquor Association. And we never got it incorporated, but it was a group of people. And I think we had at that time every retail liquor store. And they would pay $100 each into the treasury. We didn't have regular dues, but we would keep that until it was gone, and then we'd get another $100. They would hire a private investigator who would go out and get an individual to self-police and do stings. And it was Kurt's idea. He thought it would be great for Littleton and help the retail just liquor store owners make sure that they weren't breaking the rules and that they would make sure they were on top of enforcement. And he was the first member and the last member. It finally broke apart because we couldn't get enough stores to chip in the $100. But I think he funded it by himself for a year or two without any contributions from anyone else.
I think we left out the fact that the police were aware of what they were doing, so they wouldn't be doing anything illegal, and they didn't go through with any of the purchases.
On their stings, because we didn't have legal authority to actually purchase.
Right. Okay, anything else? No?
Any questions for Kurt?
I don't.
No, not at this time. So well, it looks like this licensee has taken steps to make sure this doesn't happen again. I'm very impressed with this thing. Your people have been tips trained, and you keep that current?
Some of them have.
Some of them have. We'd like to recommend that you get them all trained. But I don't think that a long suspension is going to do any different, anything going to help or hurt anybody here. So I think since you have stipulated that it did happen. So you will have this violation on your record, but I'm going to recommend 1 day and hold it in abeyance. Hold the whole day in abeyance.
I recommend.
Speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. I'm going to recommend 1 day suspension and 1 day in abeyance. So you won't serve any time, but it will be on your record.
You're going to put that in the form of the...
I'm going to put it in a motion right now. I move that the authority find Kurt A. Maelstrom doing business Pyramid Discount Liquors, 599 West Littleton Boulevard, Littleton, Arapahoe County, Colorado, did violate Colorado Revised Statute 12-47-9011A. Based on said findings, I move that Kurt A. Maelstrom doing business Pyramid Discount Liquors, 599 West Littleton Boulevard, license be suspended for 1 day, with that day held in abeyance for 1 year. And I guess that's the end of the motion, because we don't have to post it and we don't have
Second
to
the motion.
Pick a start date for it. Can I get a second? Oh, you second? Would you poll the authority, please?
Voting Member Gallagher?
Yes.
Voting Member Braddock?
Yes.
Voting Member Cole?
Yes.
Voting Member Odell?
Yes.
Voting Member Clark?
Yes.
Thank you.
I missed it, but it was the second made into the microphone, so it was audible to the recorder? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all
you, sir.
very much.
All right, next order of business. Metro Oil Company Incorporated, doing business as Diamond Shamrock, 1109 at 6857 South Broadway. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the authority. My name is Adam Stapen, S-T-A-P-E-N, a partner with Dill Carr, Stonebreaker, and Hutchings, appearing on behalf of the licensee. Also with me is Dave Mulholland. He is the area manager, and we also have Christine Nelms, and she is the store manager.
Okay.
One thing for the agenda, it shows again that we're on 9C. This should read 9D.
9D.
I am providing you with an Exhibit D, which is the history, and it will also show that it's for agenda item 9D. We'd ask you to also accept Exhibits A, B, and C for the purposes of this hearing to show that it's a valid hearing.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept A through D?
Also move.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This is another situation where there's going to be an admission and there won't be a hearing and there'll be a presentation by the licensee.
Okay.
Correct.
You may begin, Mr. Stapen.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, at the outset, we are going to admit that the sale occurred, and I can tell you on behalf of my client that we apologize. It was not our intention, by any stretch of the imagination, to sell alcohol to a minor. I've represented Diamond Shamrock and its various entities for the past, 8, 9 years in their liquor licensing. I think my firm has done it for longer than that. I can tell you, as you probably hear licensees that come before you, when you talk about training and what you do to prevent the sale of alcohol, I can tell you that this licensee takes every step available in its possession and power to prevent the sale of alcohol to a minor. And let me walk you through that. Before a clerk or anyone is allowed to sell or work the cash register at the store, they must pass a computer-based training that deals with alcohol, tobacco, those type of sales which are concerned with the community. The area managers are the various different area managers in Colorado. One of them attended a TIPS training and came back to me and said that the store training and its own in-house training, it far exceeds the TIP training that is provided for in the state of Colorado. So we feel very confident with this computer-based training. In addition to the initial training, every quarter these employees, as a requirement for keeping their job, must sign quarterly affirmations acknowledging their duty and responsibility to check the ID, not to sell to intoxicated individuals, to uphold the policies and procedures that Diamond Shamrock has in place. If that's not enough, every year these same employees must retake and repass the computer-based training dealing with alcohol and tobacco and those type of events. What else can we do? In addition to that, we have, as you've probably seen, point of sales, where the cash register, when you purchase the alcohol, bring alcohol up to the cash register, it prompts a timeout. We have to take an action here, check an ID before the sale can go through. We have all these policies and procedures in place, so what happened at this instance? Well, look at the police report. I have not talked to the individual because in addition to this, we have a zero tolerance policy. The individual is fired immediately. No questions asked. You saw a call to a minor. If you want to violate our policies and procedures, after we got done spending a lot of money training you and putting our license in jeopardy, you don't belong with us. Sorry, you're not around. So looking at the police report, what we have here is that the individual brought up alcohol, and my understanding, an identification was requested, was presented. And as Mr. Cole said, well, if it's vertical, wouldn't that be obvious? Well, it's obvious to us. It's obvious to those who train these individuals. It's obvious to the managers, the area managers, and so forth. But for whatever reason, was not obvious to this individual. And this individual allowed the sale to occur. So where are we now? Well, I can tell you these policies work. This license has been in place since 1999, not as long as the other individual before you, but we're still looking at approximately 10 years without a violation. We have not seen one another. If this is my first time appearing before you on Diamond Shamrock, I mean, how many Diamond Shamrocks do we have in the city of Littleton? Those Valero stores, I could tell you this one's been there since 99, no violations. The employee was fired. What did we do to the remaining employees? We requested that they all sit down with us and have another manager meeting and again sign off the affirmations to say this is serious. As you saw, your fellow employee lost his job, you lose yours, and sign off again. This is not going to happen. In this instance, as you know, regulation, the Department of Revenue has enacted the regulations that talk about this compliance check. And so, well, what do they recommend? And essentially for them, it's warning up to a 15-day suspension, 14-day suspension with a fine in lieu of. I know the previous one, that track record was quite amazing, I'll be honest with you. That's an amazing track record, and what that individual has done to stand up in the community to say, I want to ensure that this doesn't happen, not only for me, but for my competitors as well, I think is a tribute to him. I don't represent him, don't know him, but I do this for a living. I think that's a tribute to him. I can tell you in our instance, we would request something similar. Maybe it's several days held, or several-day penalty with several days held in abeyance for the fact that we are doing what we can do. The individual before you, the liquor store, I didn't hear any training about what they did, what preventative measures were taken. We have all these preventative measures in place. We do everything we can. I have my area manager here with me along with the store manager. They can answer any questions of you, if you have any questions of them. I can walk through initially the seriousness. If you want me to walk through this, but I suspect, Chairman Gallagher, you know this like the back of your hand. Everything I presented to you, this is not an entity or a licensee that you have to be concerned with for sales of alcohol to a minor. Unfortunately, it is a type of business that does have high turnover. We know that these individuals are not individuals that are there for a career. These are individuals that are there for whatever reason. It's hard to keep the clerks. And with that in mind, and still no violations in 10-odd years or 9-odd years, with all the training we have in place, I think that speaks volumes for what we do and how seriously we take this offense. So if there's any other questions, I'd love to answer them. Otherwise, I would ask that you impose multiple days. I know it can't be one, because I think one for that type of licensee is a different boat. So if it's multiple days, but have those held in abeyance within 1 year, and let us show you that you will not see us again for maybe more 10, 15, 20 years, and the board turns over. So
I have a question for you to address. It's my understanding that you go through all this training and all this intensity and have these things written down and these affirmations that they'll be fired if they make this mistake, even though this is a convenience product that you carry as opposed to a mainline profit product that you carry.
Absolutely. And as Mr. Katz was saying, you probably know 3.2 beer, our sales, I can tell you, are minimal. I think you may see sales of maybe under $1,000 in a month, or maybe even less than that. But this is a convenience product. We're not here to primarily make our money on this. However, we do take this just as serious as anything else, such as our tobacco, where we probably have many more sales of cigarettes, but that training for the cigarettes and the alcohol are parallel in their importance to to San Antonio, corporate down in San Antonio, and to all of our stores that we have in Colorado. I think we have over 60 stores in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, maybe more. We just got done acquiring Albertsons, their convenience stores. But absolutely, this is not a profit product, so you would think that there wouldn't be this type of emphasis on the alcohol and to ensure the training, but it is. It is for us.
The employee that was terminated, was this the sole cause of the termination?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, there's no questions asked. No questions asked. Sorry I didn't see it. Sorry I made a mistake. Sorry I was busy. That means nothing to us. It's immediate termination. Now, I know some authorities would like the employee to stay on because it allows the employee to tell the other employees that, wow, I just went through this. I had to go to criminal court, have a misdemeanor, everything
so
else.
we don't demand or require they stay on or be terminated or.
But I just let you know that. But it's our corporate policy that's best in our interests.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like this is a one-time incident, and they do have a good track record. The seriousness of the violation, of course, it's a serious violation to sell to underage. Corrective actions, they've had corrective actions in place. Prior violations, none. Repeated course of conduct, single event is more like it. Likelihood of recurrence, slim. Wasn't a willful violation. Hardship is not going to be an issue. Well, you got a pretty clean record, but I think we're going to have to give you at least a day.
If that's the case, then I'd ask that we also make an oral motion to pay a fine in lieu of.
Can't do that in the city.
Oh, you guys don't have.
Yeah, we
final
don't have that
notices?
option here, sorry.
Can I ask, does the city have any recommendation as to the amount of days or anything? I know this is an admission. No?
No. With,
I disagree.
with the vendors that have good, solid histories.
Sorry, Mr. Katz.
And
Make a
have
motion.
what appears to be an isolated incident, I believe that is something that they best present, and for them to communicate to the authority, and for my office to basically stay out of that realm of recommendation, because we're talking subtleties here as opposed to, does this need a hammer? Do we need to revoke? Is this a dangerous situation?
Can we discuss it?
Sure.
I think if we went the way we went with Pyramid, I think this is a one-time.
I
problem
agree.
in 10 years.
I agree.
I mean, it could be more days, but I believe they should be held in abeyance.
My suggestion would be 2 days and all in abeyance.
Let's do 3. And in a band.
Do a motion?
Go ahead.
I move that the authority find that Metro Oil Company Incorporated doing business as Diamond Shamrock number 1109, 6857 South Broadway, Littleton, Arapahoe County, Colorado, did violate CRS 12-47-901-1A. Based on said findings, I move that Metro Oil Company Incorporated doing business as Diamond Shamrock number 1109, 6857 South Broadway liquor license be suspended for 2 days, both days to be held in abeyance for 1 year, and that the suspension doesn't begin.
I'll second that motion.
Would you poll the authority, please?
Voting Member Gallagher?
Okay.
Voting Member Braddock?
Yes.
Voting Member Cole?
Yes.
Voting Member Odell?
Yes.
Voting Member Price?
Yes.
You're welcome. Thanks. Let's don't come back here, okay?
It's been this long, and hopefully it's twice as long, if not longer.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, item 10, general business. Anybody got anything? I have something that I heard from Authority Member Odell, that it's secondhand hearsay evidence, but Dub's Pub had put signs on all their tables saying that, what did it say, Donovan?
A family member relayed to me that they had been in there and on the tables a notice had been put of the dates, or that they had been suspended by the liquor authority, to the effect that we'd made a big deal out of nothing.
I would want to advise the authority at this point that that information should never play a role in any determination for any future issue that is brought in or concerning Dub's Pub, so that you would make a determination based on the evidence at that hearing and the record as it stands, as opposed to what other First Amendment issues a person might try to affect for their business.
Okay, well, my question was, I thought that the regulations stated that they were not allowed to do that. That when they were closed, they had to have the sign that the city clerk puts up, and that anything that would try to mitigate that order that was put up there was not legal.
Well, if the sign is up and we're going to have a First Amendment conflict, they have their opinion that you did something inappropriate. I believe we're talking about an area that they can start a controversy with their customers about, but the sign is there, and I can research that for the authority and get back to you about whether there is any action for that. But I believe we're on
Thin ice.
thin ice would be a good way to put that.
Well, let me go on the record and say it. I don't really care if they carve it in the top of their tables.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. It was brought to my attention, and I thought I'd mention it.
Well, for the legal purpose of the investigation, I think it's appropriate, as long as we keep it in perspective for any future actions that might be, and work on those just based on the evidence and the record, and not their response or their indignation, which anybody who gets an offense usually doesn't feel good about it.
Okay, item 11A, reports. Anything from the staff?
I don't have anything.
Authority members?
No.
Chairman has nothing. We're adjourned.